started. I have to do math normally in one class period today. Again, I don't know. I'm on YouTube. I don't know who decided. And I'm going to do all the things. My crap didn't do all the things before now. I'm doing math this period. Okay. Y'all have not been. Y'all have a lot on you. I get that. Whatever. Yeah. Didn't too deep. So I get. Now y'all had a lot of things to do. Oh, I'm not talking. Apparently not talking. I get y'all had a lot of things to do, but I still have people who didn't print in their Walmart worksheet. Still y'all just do those. Yeah, and just do one. My God. No.
Get in here.
No. Sit down. Okay. Some people still didn't turn in their Walmart worksheet. Some people still haven't turned in their Chapter 3 homework. Some people still haven't turned in their worksheet that's technically not due until tomorrow. But my goodness, why wouldn't you go ahead and get it done? That's one with all the little calculator screens. I don't really know. You already did it. I don't really know what the deal is with that. But if you really think we can fix things after tomorrow, we can't. I won't. You cannot. Okay. That's where I'm at the world. That's why I'm at the world. If I don't get to get my own words out in my own time, I'm going to cuss again. I can feel it. Cuss words go down within me. Cuss words go down within me.
Hey, don't send them down.
Okay. I know. Sending them down.
His first pop out the same person and everything.
My child.
His first words when his first words.
Math. My baby's name is Math. And then my middle name is all the time. Yep. My name's Math, and the middle name all the time.
Math all
the time constant. I've seen worse. I got the hyphens. Math all the time Compton. Period. No, that's weird. Math all the time Compton is her name.
Oh,
Math.
wait, that's weird on so many levels.
She said it the other day. This is her second time to make that joke. It's your second time to make that joke. Still annoying. Pass. Yes. And what kind of pass?
You want me to sit on here?
Bless you. Thank you.
Oh, wait, there's another thing?
Okay, so I'm really annoyed with the world today, especially you, just because by association you were there for last. You picked up the 2 pages off the podium. You realize we're moving on to a new chapter today. I realize some people did not finish their test. The sooner I get these words out and people get less dumb on me, the sooner I can let you finish your test. But it's not looking so hot. Which means you might have to come to 0 period, depending on how far behind you were on the test. Words I was going to say. Oh, so next Monday you're out of school. Tuesday I have a conference. So we're starting stuff today, and I'm leaving something related to it on Tuesday. There's possibly a video. Anyway, Tuesday I'm not going to be here. You'll have a sub. My God, if you're not productive, I literally will have to come back and get you. Like, I just will have to come back and beat you. I just know it, but it's okay. They can know. They can know that I came back and beat you because you weren't productive. Next Wednesday is the PSAT for juniors and some sophomores. During that testing time, they're not going to say, seniors, you don't have to come to school, because let's face it, that, my goodness, is a waste. So that's why there's this note on the board that on Wednesday they're going to offer sessions. You have to choose something to do. Surely they're offering sessions on like FAFSA, not that that's not great, interview skills, not that that's not great, but instead, I'm going to encourage you. They're doing a whole, and you won't be with me forever. It's from 8:30 to 12:30, but you'll be with me for 30 minutes, and some of you have lit, so you'll be with lit for 30 minutes, and we'll swap back and forth and just do a study session. And that would be great to like recap what we've learned in 1, 2, and 3 and get us ready and rolling for 4. So I understand it, because Shalia, she's a junior, she won't be able to come to it. And I understand if you choose to not come to it, and I'll offer you the material we use anyway. But I'm going, because you're a junior.
You have to take
it.
Lord Jesus. Because you're taking the PSAT on Wednesday. Only seniors are getting to come.
Wait, do I have to take it again? I already took a lesson.
Yes. You have to take it.
Everybody's taking it.
All juniors have to take it.
All sophomores and juniors take it both years, regardless of if you take it.
Sophomores don't have to take it, but if you take it and you do well, then your junior year, if you do, they like track you. They're like, Shalia did well 10th grade year, and then they track her. So if she does super well junior year, then she could possibly, if she scored higher enough, be a National Merit Scholar. So it's worth it. It's just, that's what's happening Wednesday, and that affects you. So let me get out my rant and not with any more blind questions, because that's your second blind question of the day. You got one more. What was the first one? That's 3. No more questions. So it's gonna be from 8:30 to 12:30. You're gonna get offered. There's some of you who are in triple life. We're gonna try to make it where you can do a little bit of all 3. I think me and Ranillo have reached an agreement that if you'll choose her first and choose me second, that would make us happiest. My double uppers. Ranillo and I are aware of you. We're trying to make.
I'm not doing either.
Do what?
I'm doing this fast, I'm not doing either.
Whatever. You come to this.
I'm doing fast.
You're totally coming to this, and I'm gonna bribe you with candy. Plus, I'm gonna give you grade boosters.
I don't need candy.
If you give me candy, I will anyway.
Oh, there's gonna be candy, and I'm going to. Did she ask another question?
I don't know, but I have a question. What'd you say?
If you are able to be here, I'm gonna offer you the material so you can still get bonus, but I'm not promising to save you any candy. So I'm gonna offer bonus points and candy for
I
this.
don't like candy.
That's too bad. I'm gonna bring some other food choices as well.
I'll bring it to
Say words.
Tacos.
No.
Chicken biscuits.
Fries.
I need something that I don't have to keep warm, like honey buns, Skittles.
Cosmic brownies.
There you go, like cosmic brownies. There you go,
Chips,
actual
chips.
things.
Like
Chips.
Salt and vinegar.
Okay, I'll get chips and candy of some sort. Okay, I can do chips that I can handle. Y'all are very needy to be, and I don't feel like I get that much in return. Just throwing that out there. Yes, dear.
Okay, so on that day, do we not have to be here until 8:30? And also, I have another question.
I don't actually know all that. They've not really clarified that with me. I'm thinking you don't actually have to be here until 8:30, but don't quote me on that. Till I think at 12:30 we'll let you go, either leave or get lunch or something. I think at 12:30 we're done with you. I think they're letting you check out around 1 anyway. So I don't know.
So we're not taking
I don't
a
know.
test.
Doesn't matter, we have
Seniors aren't taking a test.
practice
We're
that
just doing things. Okay, or we are taking a test.
We're not it's not like a mock test. We're just gonna have a study session where we we work together and make sure we have everything under control so far. Because to be honest, I feel like we don't have everything under control, and it would make me feel better to like recap from the beginning of, and now we have everything under control. This was quantitative and categorical, and this was all the things. I just go over all the things again in a fast way and make sure we're all on the same page. That way, eventually, like Kenzie asked earlier, eventually would the chapters connect, and eventually they will, part of the giant picture. Yes, dear.
Do you know pre-cal?
Yes. Can you give me? Yeah. Show
Do you
me.
have helper?
Show me. Okay. Can you?
Wait, can they see that?
No.
Okay. She wrote down how to do it, but I forgot. It's like F of something, G of X of H of bunch of.
Do you know how to do composition? Okay. So meanwhile.
Class.
Yeah. That makes you sound like
Go Chili.
sound like you're about to get it.
As in your closet, right?
Yeah.
You are not the father.
And then like, I didn't even all the study guide that she gave me. Is that just flipping it? Isn't that read something? Like it'd be -5, +2, -8, -1.
Negative 5.
That's it? Okay. So there's that I don't get, and then what is the? Why is that on the outside? What does X and -1 mean?
What's to do that?
I don't know.
I hope it's a 100. Mine's so sweet. Fail.
I'm just like, wait, I know how to do one of these. How much I've already created it, like,
Because you have a designed this in here.
like, oh, I know how to do Jordan. And then I was just like, this is like one big matter.
I can literally looks like the word fob. And it means that your composition is F of G of X. Which means everywhere in F that you had an X, so F you
It made sense.
X plus 1. But instead of putting X, put what G was. The G goes inside it.
I mean, it makes
X
sense.
minus 1 over 2.
It's been something.
And then you start doing math, it's like, hey, the 2's cancel out, X minus 1 plus 1 equals 1. So it ends up being just X.
You just like have an
If
object on a rope, you
they are inverses, if when you do this fog thing, it's just X. Okay? But you have to check it both ways. So I did fog, you have to check it the other way too, so you have to do it.
He's like,
Okay.
super
And you know, X that way, you have to go both ways. Okay.
And then on
Wait, what's this?
this side, why are these on that?
It's still the same, it's still fog.
Pound
It means the same
bounding.
thing
I put a
as
U.
plug in
Pound
M into
bounding.
T. Plug in H into T. Plug in
Of
H.
the
Everywhere in X,
No.
in F, you see it's X, you plug in H.
No? Well, then what if there's a negative
How do
one
you
on
know
there?
it's soft?
Then literally you're gonna plug negative 1 into G, get a number. You can plug whatever that number is.
Can I like,
Yes, absolutely.
No.
Okay.
I'll do that
So-
way. Not to do it that way. Right for.
I got distracted that time. I'm back to focus now. Cody, you'll shut the door so I get undistracted. Okay,
My second question. So
you got a limit of 3.
It wasn't a stupid question.
It's true. Good point. Touche.
This one might be a little stupid, but it's important.
Okay.
So we don't get to either.
What?
It smell.
So we don't
Out of
get to
nowhere.
eat until like 1 o'clock.
I'm not really sure. They're still working on a set schedule for it, to be honest. Heck, my YouTube video is blown anyway, so if they watch this one, they're just blown. I don't know why they watch this long to begin with. To be honest, I was supposed to help with PSAT testing, and then Ranillo mentioned to me that she was doing a study session with AP Cal, and I was like, hey, I want to do a study session, so I happened to talk to the right person, and now I get to do a study session too, but I happened to, it just happened as of today that I became part of this.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'm behind. I didn't even know there was going to be study sessions. How did I miss that memo? I don't know. How did he fall out of his chair? There are lots of questions I've got going on in my mind.
You didn't fall out of it. You never sat down. You didn't know.
How did that happen? Okay, so I don't know.
Quietly yesterday, didn't
He did, and you freaked out then, Sally. You're making the big dirt twice. That's 1 for you. You're at strike 1. 2 more and I throw a finish you.
Do I get to keep it?
No,
I'm only at 1.
and I'm aiming at the face.
Oh, okay.
You're close.
I have terrible aim, but I'm aiming at the face.
You're pretty.
You better be ready. You better hope she doesn't get to 3.
How many dumb questions do I get?
3. You get 3.
Everyone gets 3.
Okay, so
Everything.
okay. Oh my God, I can't. Can we do math now? Please, God, let us do math now. It is 2:32. Yeah, 40 minutes into class, and you still got to finish the test. Lord Jesus, we got to fly through some math. You ready? Let's go. Okay. No. Okay. So you're gonna focus now. Look, I can't even add points to any table to fake make this work. Table 2. You're the quietest, the fastest. You can get a point. That's our goal at the moment. You can't ask any more questions. You've been banned. You're done for the day. Okay, moving on. We've got to focus. We just tested on linear regression and everything seemed okay, but Mackenzie makes a good point of does that actually relate back to what we were doing at the very beginning with quantitative and categorical and histograms and the spread and the cussing and so eventually we've got to connect all those dots. So, and then back to, do we still know how to do those things? So that's what the study session should be good for, is just a refresher. Okay, excuse me, my hiccups. To recap where we are. Now, to recap, what we've done so far is great, but it's not really how stats works. So what we've done so far is, you're handed data, now do stuff with it. You're handed it. Here you go, here's the data, you do stuff with it. You make this, you interpret this, you do stuff with it. And now we've actually gotten into how you collect data on your own. And not just I do a fun activity bouncing balls, but in real life, how do you collect mass quantity data and the strategic ways to handle doing so. So first we're going to talk about variables and different association, and back to, of course, we're going to be reunited today with the fact that we cannot say a certain word in stats, and what word is that?
Causation.
So we're actually going to get into that a little more today. So if you look at the top, it tells you about association between variables, and we've been very specific about saying there's a positive association, a negative association, but we've never said that something causes something. So they gave us a couple examples about X and Y. And for instance, how much a young man has at 40 versus how much his father had at 40, I bet there is a correlation between those two. And so they give you some examples. And then they ask, it's very hard to prove that an explanatory variable actually causes something. And they give an example, for instance, and I like this one, if you don't study, you won't pass. Well, there are other things that can go into you not, I passed a lot of classes without studying. But if it was a really, really difficult class, and you will get there one day if you haven't yet, you will get there where if you don't actually open the book, you cannot literally pass the class. I love you dearly, but I meant it when I said you were done. Okay. And then, is that one really, if you practice piano, you will get better? Is that true?
Depends on how you practice.
It depends on how you practice. What was your version of practice? So, I don't know. So, back to saying something causes something, they do seem related, but none of them can be proven true. So, there are people who smoke and don't actually get cancer. They say smoking causes cancer, but there are people who smoke and don't get cancer. And it's not fair, but it's life. There are some people in here who've never opened a book in their life. You're welcome. And yet, somehow, they're still passing the class. There are people who eat chocolate and their faces are still clear. There are people who can practice piano until the cows come home and they're still awful. So, and then there are 3 types of association that we're interested in. And so we're finally going to pinpoint what we're interested in today. And that's the chart in the middle is what's most important for today. You had a question.
No, I had a question.
Okay.
Yes, dear.
I didn't.
Never mind.
Okay.
I'm lost.
So there are 3 things most important today. So if we have 2 variables, if one actually causes the other, then there's nothing else in there. Like there's nothing else that relates to it. Because you get that I might study for a test and get an A, but I also just might be really smart. There are some outside things that might factor into this. And in fact, I might not have studied for my test at all. I might just be really smart to begin with. So we're going to talk about causation, common response, and confounding. Okay, and then you have a couple problems you're supposed to do on your own, which those of us who need to finish our test will have to push that back for homework. I'm going to make it the first grade in the second 9 weeks. Okay, so causation is very difficult to prove. And there are not many examples that you can be given in life. And the ones that we do have are kind of obvious. For instance, driving faster causes you to use more gasoline. That's a proven thing. Driving faster causes you to use more gasoline.
Oh.
If you used to pay per minute, so now this one's kind of outdated, but when you used to pay per minute, if you talked more on the phone, you spent more minutes, and that caused you to pay more money. But now this one's even outdated. Because now we all have these set deals, so we don't actually pay per minute anymore, so it's outdated. So it's really hard to prove causation, so very rarely in your life should you say it. You hear about studies all the time. I have a big problem watching the news where they say stuff like eating more broccoli leads to lower blood pressure. You don't know that person didn't also exercise. You don't know that there weren't other factors that went into that. So it's hard to prove that eating broccoli literally lowers your blood pressure. But the news quotes stuff like that all the time. Yeah, and they say that's supposed to be good for you. Or like it says, causes people to live longer, whatever. So the second type, so that's the first box where this is directly caused. Y is directly caused by X. Only Y and X, like X must cause Y. But more than likely, you're going to be either in a common response or confounding. So we've got to get those 2 separate. Common response refers to something, and it is a vocab term you need to know, a lurking variable. So you and I think there's only X and Y, just I study, I make my A. But there could be a lurking variable like I'm just naturally gifted. So if you're just naturally gifted, that's going to change X and it's going to change Y. And it creates an association between X and Y, although there may not even be a causal link between X and Y. So, yes, if you are smart, then you are more inclined to study, and you probably are more inclined to have a better grade in the class. So it probably does impact both, hence why common response has both the arrows. And then I like their example about positive association between one's high school GPA and one's college GPA. There's no causation, but there are lurking variables that cause a common response. And then what are some of them that would cause you to have a high GPA in high school, that therefore you have a high GPA in college?
Study habits.
Study habits and
Being smart.
Intelligence.
your intelligence, and
Not being dumb.
Easy classes.
you might always take easy classes. You have a set strategy as to how you're doing things in life. I have my notebooks a certain way. I've been a certain person my entire life because it works. And, you know, like you do what works for you. You know what I mean? You did something and it works for you. Sally has like her pencil pouch. She's going to take her pencil pouch with her to college. This is how she does it. She's going to keep going that way. Well, but you're still going to have a set system.
I know.
Okay, flip to the back. So, and if you don't have a set system, then they might say there's a negative association between them, but eventually you will. Okay, so the confusing one is confounding, and that's the last one on the front, the last box, where it shows X, and there's a question mark between X and Y. So we're questioning, really, is X causing Y? Is X really affecting Y, or is Z the only thing affecting Y? So that's what confounding is going to explain. Yes, dear?
Which one is your favorite?
Confounding. Okay, so confounding is a little more complex. You thought that X caused Y, but, as always, there are other lurking variables that could have an influence on Y. And, honestly, we have no idea how much X has to do with Y. So, the difference between common and confounding is right here, and it's useful to note, so I'd probably put a star. The difference between common and confounding is that in confounding, the lurking variable affects just Y. Just Y. So, I like their example. It says people who go to church tend to live longer. And then suppose a study was done and there was evidence to this fact. But how long one lives has many lurking variables. Name some of them. What has to do with how long you live? Not you going to church. What actually has to do with how you live? Your health.
And
What else? The food choices you make, the joy choices you make.
You happen to just die.
But
Your
does
genetic history.
your health, I mean, it might impact your attendance, but does your health, your food choices, your drug habit, well, your drug habits, do they genuinely affect you and your church? Well, I guess they could. You could get kicked out of your church. But we're going to say those factors really aren't impacting church.
Still a thing?
Probably.
I mean, you could choose not to do either of them.
I mean, you could have choose to, yeah, but they're not, they specifically only monitor people who went to church.
What did I do with? Okay.
So, but you going to McDonald's, yes, that might impact whether or not you're going to live longer, but is that impacting you in your church life? No. No. Okay, so
You'll be fat and happy.
while the study may have some merit, there is certainly no causation, and it's difficult to know how much influence going to church might actually have on the duration of one's life. Okay. They have another example that's also just as fun. It says people who own pets tend to have lower blood pressure. Suppose a study was done and there was evidence to this fact. But this relationship has many lurking it should be lurking, that's misspelled. Lurking variables. Name some of them.
People that make their own pet food.
Okay, but people who own pets have lower blood pressure. How else could you lower your blood pressure? The most obvious way would be exercise, and it makes sense that people who exercise also own an animal. So, anyway, so moving on. Most of the studies need actual experimental tests done with them, and we're actually going to start talking about that in this chapter. So how, when we go out in the world and we choose our sample, there's specific ways we're going to choose them, whether we want to just do all the girls, just do all the boys. There's specific set ways to do them, and they each have a different name, depending on if we block it and just do the one table versus anybody can respond if they want to. Each one has a different name, and that's the problem we're about to face. Okay, but first things first. First things first. We have to decide.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, dear.
Okay, so is this going to be the first time where we get to go out and gather data and then work with it?
We are going to get to do that very shortly. Very shortly. Okay, so first things first, to make sure we understand that causation is very hard to prove, which we've discussed 1,000 times, but I guess we need to prove it one last time to ourselves. You're given these 13 problems, you have to decide if the relationship described could be like that chart. Is it causation, common response, or confounding? More than likely, you should choose common response or confounding, because there's going to be lurking variables. And then you need to identify lurking variables. And it's okay if you go silly like him with his McDonald's or drug addict. Like, I don't care. But for real lurking variables. It's okay if they're a little silly. I don't care. Exactly. Exactly what I said. For instance, let's look at
Number 3.
10. The amount of people drinking the amount of people,
drinking people do.
the amount of people, yes, sorry, good.
People drinking do.
Yeah.
Like drinking.
Yeah, I was thinking do as well, but then when Sally said it better, I was like, oh yeah. So your drinking habits versus the incidence of liver disease.
Does that mean like drinking like alcohol?
And we're gonna assume that means alcohol. That's a good question to ask. So we assume they mean alcohol. So number 10, Sally's gonna decide causation, common response, or confounding.
I would say it's can I answer?
Yeah.
I would say it's a common response.
Okay, so I'm probably you can put causation. I know there's a couple where you could definitely argue causation, but I don't think you can argue causation on this one. I think you should argue common response, or should you do confounding? Which one?
I would say
What else causes liver disease? That's like a common thing.
What else causes liver disease?
liver disease.
Is diabetes a liver disease?
You're getting out of my lane. I don't think so. I thought that had to do with your insulin
I
and
think
pancreas.
is alcohol like the leading cause of liver disease? So shouldn't that be common response?
I think it should be common response because there's other stuff that could lead to liver disease, such as
But I mean,
does it
what's
run in
the-
your
What's also the
family?
leading
Such
cause?
as.
Well, I agree that definitely alcohol and liver disease are associated, but one causes the other. It might run in your family, and then that's a
Oh,
lurking
yes,
variable.
causation.
But then I agree. But there are other lurking variables besides it runs in your family. What are some other lurking variables?
Do you go to prison often?
I mean,
Some people are completely against drinking alcohol.
People shake you.
Okay, but what else causes liver disease besides drinking alcohol?
The bacterium that causes liver disease.
Whatever that is. So there must be other things that cause that liver
things
disease.
just
I don't
happen.
think gas.
Some people just are more likely to get liver disease. Maybe you're just prone to get sick.
Just like
You can't help that. I mean, so there are other lurking variables that we need to consider.
Cody.
Cody, you're doing the tapping thing. What are some other variables that we can come up with besides the prone to or like it runs in your family?
I don't know what causes liver disease.
I don't know.
Drinking.
Google.
I get legal
Why?
shit.
Yeah, I'm good.
In Cortana.
Because I
It's
would
like the only thing else causes is just like an inherited disease.
So inheritance. But I assume that some people just like we're saying you're more prone to have it. And then it says read a list of your lurking variables. It's okay if you can only come up with 2. But again, if Sally says common response, she's got to come up with at least 1 lurking variable. The more the better.
Do we need to write those on there?
Yeah. If you flip to the back.
Please, I'm like inherited like liver disease.
Oh wow.
If you flip to the back, it tells you how to do it. So you say, for instance, we were on what number were we on that on the front?
That was 10.
14.
It was 10. Okay, so on number 10, it's the alcohol and the liver disease. We say there is a positive association between alcohol and liver disease because we assume the more alcohol you drink, the more prone you are to get liver disease. A positive association.
You are to the
We decided it was common response, so I'm putting a check mark in the common response box. And then we decided that we were going to list, it could be like an inheritance or like inherited thing.
Hereditary.
So genetics or hereditary, however you want to word it. And then you could say some people are just more prone
Is it?
to disease. I don't know. I feel like they're the same thing. 1 and 2 are. Either one would suffice, honestly.
Do we have to do?
But you could be really funny and write something like, I did this study, and they messed with my liver, and I took all these drugs specifically for my liver, and now I have liver disease. Sounds like one of those Alexander Shinar commercials where he's like, if you've had this, and you develop this, then call me.
Alabama.
Yeah, so there could be something like that.
I know like if people you take a bunch of painkillers or whatever, it can damage their kidneys. Could that be a similar?
Yeah, so someone who's addicted to something else besides alcohol, it might impact their liver. That's a good one,
Let me
Sally.
argue my point.
Yes, dear.
If you go to prison a lot, it's likely you're gonna get stabbed in the liver.
That's not
If you get stabbed in the
Not
liver,
like
there's a
think about
chance
it.
you
Think
get
about fellas.
infected. That's a form of
How big
disease
gay
in the
start
liver.
As long as
illegal
you
for
explain it well in your paper, I'm
California
gonna
all the way
give
to
it to you.
Alabama. That sounds pretty gay.
As long as you
It's
explain it
so
well in your paper.
fun.
Okay.
There, wake up, I believe.
So do we have?
I'm looking for more realistic, like what Sally was thinking, but again,